Hi, my name is Chantal and I'm a therapeutic riding coach. This is my final assignment for the Neurobiology of Everyday Life course taught by Professor Peggy Mason. Apologies for reading this out. I realise it's not very fluent, but I don't want to leave bits out or forget anything or ramble off. Today I'm going to demonstrate why riding horses is so rich in neurobiological activity. I wholeheartedly believe that it's an activity that's good for us on many levels. I believe the 4 functions listed by Professor Mason in week 1, voluntary movement, homeostasis, perception and abstract function, riding either impacts or is impacted by every single one. For example, it's aerobic. We use movement patterns, we plan, we anticipate, we adapt. We find and refine our balance constantly. We feel the horse changing beneath us. We perceive the world from this different viewpoint. It can make us hot, cold, nervous, excited, anxious, scared, relaxed. It's a social activity. It requires cooperation and communication with another sentient being. It really is a whole brain and whole body activity. Having closely examined some of the footage of riders with a neurobiological eye, I struggle to identify an area of the nervous system that actually isn't involved when I'm riding. And as much as I would like to cover all of that today, that's kind of beyond the scope of this presentation. So to start with, I'm going to give you a brief demonstration of something that's really important to a rider, which is maintaining a steady gaze. You need this to stay upright, to keep your balance, and to direct the horse safely. So here I have my 2 horse models and my strange doll that I'm using, because that's all I have. So in the first example here, my horse is walking. I actually think this horse is probably trotting, but we're going to imagine that it's walking. So as the horse is walking, it's a slow movement, so it probably uses optic flow to maintain a steady gaze. The chances are the horse is not going to be moving fast enough to trigger the vestibular ocular reflex, because it's not going to be moving the hair cells inside the vestibular organs. So we rely on information from the midbrain instead, from the optic flow. So you can see her gaze is straight ahead. In my second example here, the horse is reared up suddenly. Sorry, you can't see her position because of her long skirt. The horse is reared up suddenly. So in this situation here, maybe the dog has run out, the horse is suddenly reared. So the rider is actually going to be using vestibular ocular reflex instead of optic flow, because it's a sudden movement. That sudden movement is going to have moved her head back, stimulating the vestibular ocular reflex, because it's going to have excited the hair cells inside the vestibular apparatus, probably the semicircular canals, and that's going to trigger the reflex and allow her to adjust her position. So if she doesn't want to fall off backwards, she's going to have to adjust her position, and she's still going to have maintained her steady gaze. Okay, so a good way of demonstrating that, if I move my lovely horse models, is if you have a feather in a jar of water. This is quite a good way to demonstrate the 2 types of visual integration. So with the walking, the feather is representing the hair cells. With the walking, I don't know if you can see the feather in there. A walking horse moves slowly, so the feather is not hitting the sides of the jar. The water's not moving enough to stimulate the feather to hit the sides of the jar. In a faster movement, say a rear or a trot, you can see there that the feather, representing the hair cells, is touching the sides of the jar a lot, and that would be stimulating the vestibular ocular reflex. So in both examples, our rider here was able to maintain a steady gaze, but through different neurobiological means. The vestibular ocular reflex can also be modulated. Just as a fast head acceleration is the stimulus for activating it, moving the head also switches it off, which is really handy in my job. I'm going to insert a clip of me riding with a client here. Watch our gazes. There's myself and my client riding in front of me. Have a look at where we're looking. Okay, you should have seen the clip. Hopefully you noticed that my gaze was steady and hers was not. I've been able to adapt to what she's doing, to what the horse is doing, plan where I want to go, and be able to change everything at a moment's notice, all while remaining upright and balanced and keeping us all safe. This is due to my many hours in the saddle and having a healthy hypothalamus. I've had lots of operational learning. Plus my basal ganglia have been able to chain together actions into chunks so that I don't have to think about every individual motion. This allows me to focus on all the other things, such as my passenger in front of me or keeping my horse safe. This does have the slight downside of reinforcing poor riding habits. It can also limit my coaching ability because sometimes I just can't really identify or explain exactly what it is I do at certain times because your brain just does it. And that can be really hard to pinpoint. I work with individuals that have diverse nervous systems. Undertaking this course in neurobiology has deepened my understanding of what sort of challenges they might face, whilst on a horse and also throughout life in general. As an example, I started from a point of examining visual integration, in particular the vestibular ocular reflex, because it's just so important for horse riding. I wondered what happened to a person's riding if it's faulty. Basically, they don't ride as well. Their balance isn't as good. They need to work much harder to stay on the horse, to stay balanced and stay upright. This impacts because they don't feel as safe. They may feel more wobbly. They may feel nauseous. They may hunch over, which destabilises them. And also, this is not a great environment for learning because this impacts on their concentration. It impacts on their breathing. It kind of has a whole body knock-on effect. And also, if this is the case for the individual when they're on the horse, this might be the case for the individual when they're not on the horse as well, because my environment is a therapeutic riding centre. So the individuals that I teach, generally, they come to me with an underlying condition already, or, perhaps they're a bit older, or perhaps they have an injury, or, social or emotional difficulties. Or sometimes we just don't know, they just feel that they need to come to us. So maybe the horse is accentuating something that's actually there for them all the time. So in conclusion, my takeaway from this course is that I need to use this new knowledge and to keep learning so that I can improve my practice in a way that helps and not hinders those who have diverse nervous systems. And I think that there needs to be a whole bunch more research into this area. My references for this talk are the Neurobiology of Everyday Life that was taught by Professor Peggy of Chicago University, delivered by Coursera, and my own 15 years of working in the field of coaching individuals with diverse nervous systems. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope listening.